Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Road Warrior Spiritual Way of the Frog Travel Time. I am going to introduce you today to a coined phrase. It's called I know me. And I know me is basically the outline of how I worked my way through this narcissistic relationship that I have pretty much got a pretty firm handle on these days. And essentially, and I'll walk you through each of the terms here a little bit. The I know me represents the process of learning about yourself through your narcissist and using your narcissist as an asset. And the I represents identify. And identify is largely a step that you would have already taken if you found me in the first place. Because identify really is about first just identifying that you are in a narcissistic relationship. And identifying that you're in a narcissistic relationship, whether you've been able to clinically get a diagnosis or not, if you're in a relationship where you're being manipulated or emotionally abused, a lot of these same things are going to be able to be applicable. But when you're in a narcissistic relationship, a lot of the time you're going to feel really drained, and you're also going to feel really confused. And so if you think that you're in a relationship with somebody that, I guess I should say, if you're feeling like you're in a relationship and you're miserable, it's really important to take a nice step back. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is to identify that you're in a miserable relationship. If you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're going to want to do a little research there, and we'll talk about that as well. To identify, yeah, this is a narcissistic and codependent relationship. And but you can also just identify, hey, I think I'm in an unhealthy relationship. And part of that identify process is also identifying you. And I know that sounds really strange, but one of the first things that happens when you're in a relationship, whether it's a narcissistic one or not, any unhealthy relationship, we tend to lose ourselves. And even if as a codependent, I think that ourselves tends to be something that's made up of what other people want us to be. But there still seems to be some, in my personal experience, there were still things that I enjoyed that were mine. And so if you can just take some time and really identify those things that you would have classified to be things that really made you who you were, taking some time to identify if those things are still in your life, and are those things that you would still want to have in your life, and do you still identify with who you were before you started the relationship? And if not, do you like the new you, or do you not like the new you? So part of it is identifying that you're not in a good relationship, or that you're not happy. If you kind of make the connection, if you are in a narcissistic type of relationship, or even one with somebody that may psychologically not be healthy, if you can identify that there's something at that end that is off, and then also identify what might be off with you. And as you do that, in making what you're doing is you're creating a bit of a contrast, and you're trying to really get your bearings by identifying what is, not what you think it is, but what actually is. So as you're kind of making some notes, whether it's mental or whether you're writing it down, just kind of get a grip on what really is, and take out of the equation all of your interpretations, what you think or what you assume. You take out the assume and take out the think, and just write down what you know. So what do you know about this person? What things are you sure of? How does this person make you feel? How did you feel before? What things do you identify of yourself as being really unique to yourself? Are those things still present? Are those things that you want to have? Are those things that you can have in this relationship? And what you're doing is you're just kind of taking inventory of the situation in a way that is non-emotional, and you're going to take a nice clean and clear look at it by stepping back. Now, when you're an artist, one of the things they tell you to do when you're drawing is they tell you to take a step back from the picture and look at it and make sure that it's not really out of proportion. And so what I'm asking you to do is to identify and take a step back and really look at your situation from a non-emotional, non-judgmental, non-assumption basis, and just take a nice look and make a clean, clear note of, this is how I feel in this relationship. These are the things that I do. These are the things I used to do. This is who I was. This is who I am now. This is how this person is. This is how I feel with this person. And you're just going to take kind of an inventory of the things that you're taking a real hard look at, as neutrally as possible, your situation. So there is the aspect of that first moment, if you're coming out from a narcissistic, if you're in a narcissistic relationship, of really putting your finger on it and saying, wow, I really think I'm a victim of a narcissistic relationship. But like I said, as a general rule, if you're in a relationship that's making you unhappy or miserable, this same rule will be very helpful to take that identify step. Okay, so the next one of the I know me is knowledge, knowing. So specifically, if I was to use an example with the narcissistic relationship, one of the most powerful things that you can do is to learn. Learn about your situation, learn about yourself, learn tools, learn new avenues for healing. Get yourself connected with an actual clinical psychologist, or even a counselor, or someone that you can connect with and resonate with, that can be there to help you know and know yourself, and also to try and better understand, in this case, your narcissist. So I've mentioned it before. Sam Vaknin, if you are dealing with the narcissist, that's one avenue. You can also listen to, I'd say the majority of the stuff that you're going to find online is going to be a lot of people's opinions, and some of them obviously they're very colorful and frustrated, and that's fine. But I would encourage you, if you're going to listen to those things, really don't engage with what they're saying. I want you to just listen, and don't bring it into you. You don't want to integrate their emotions. Just watch and hear what they're saying, but you're going to do it like as if it was on television. So just you're really just learning all the different aspects. And to be fair, I think listening to people's testaments of how they have felt in these relationships is okay, as long as you don't make them your own. So you're going to need to do it from a neutral perspective. Again, just like we did with the identify, we're also going to learn in a neutral way also. So it's fine to take in all this information, but you wouldn't want to just grab the first bit of information you get and assume that it's accurate. You would not want to do that. You want to look at it from all the aspects. So as you consume information, you don't want to just say, this is right, that's wrong. We're not going to do any kind of judgment here. We're literally just bringing information in so that we can create our own, we can get our own, database going of this situation. So narcissist, not a narcissist, it's almost doesn't really matter. You can also research healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, and maybe get a good look at what those two things look like, and then also go see somebody if the opportunity is available to you to do so, and work with somebody that can also coach you through that. So that's all a part of the learning process. But knowledge is power, and that is going to be very key in this process. Okay, so I know me. Okay, the next step is going to be you're going to be also neutralizing. And when I say neutralizing is Part of the neutralizing process is the knowledge component, but it's also a matter of making the connection. So as you see those behaviors and patterns, so for example with the narcissist, you're going to connect the dots. So for an example, if you were trying to get out of a narcissistic relationship and the person is saying, oh, don't leave me, I'll change, or they're doing things to try and get you back, if you had sat down and done some of the research like I've done, you will come across several different videos that discuss hoovering. Okay, hoovering is a situation where they will bend over backwards to get you back, and that doesn't mean they're not seeing 4 other people at the same time. It just means that they're going to, put it all out there to get you back under control, because you would be a source of energetic supply for them. They need your attention and affection. And I can't get into all the psychology of that, but what I can do is just say you would be able to identify that is a technique that they have. So by being able by knowing that that's from your research, you can then neutralize the situation just by knowing what that is that's happening to you right there. So, and in many cases, sometimes it would take me a little while to realize what it was that was happening, but the more and more research I did, the more I could then neutralize the situation, just simply by being able to understand what I was looking at. Okay, so part of the neutralizing process is also to learn how to get your emotions in check. You're gonna need to be paying attention to the feelings that they're generating in you, and so neutralize drops right into the next part of the I know me, which is observe. And part of that neutralizing effect is we are combining what we know with the art of observing, and those two things come together, and that's how we end up with the ability to neutralize essentially the poison and the addiction, because in a sense it's very much like an addiction to our narcissist, so, or to the person that's able to keep us coming back for more and manipulate us. So the key here is really not integrating what it is they're saying. So in a sense, what you're doing is you're kind of taking yourself out of, you're in the world, but you're not of it. You're in the conversation, but you're not emotionally connecting to it. So you're almost turning on into a robotic state temporarily, just so that you can, from a very safe vantage point, take a look at what's going on. So now you know what you're looking at, and you can neutralize it by observing it. And so you're going to literally observe what it is they're doing and know what it is they're trying to do. And in those two processes there, you're gonna want to now key into how you're being made to feel. So even if you still react, you've still partially neutralized it, just in the fact that you're able to identify what's going on. You've identified their behavior. You've identified how that's creating that feeling in you, and you're able to observe it and neutralize it. So that process of observing them as if they were on a television screen or up on a movie screen, or down a tunnel, and you're watching the scene, but you're not letting the situation get to you, because you've put yourself in a state where you're almost not there at all. And it is hard, because there is this addictive feeling that comes with being around a narcissist. So the next step, right, the next question is, well, they still got to me, how did they get to me? Okay, so part of the I know me, the next step in the process is going to be to write down. So as you're doing your observing, what you're looking for in the observing is You're identifying what it is from what you've learned, what you now know, and you're identifying what it is they're doing so that you can neutralize your emotions on that issue, and you're keeping yourself in an observant state. And then when they still trigger you, and they will, and that's part of the process, when they are able to get a reaction out of you, the next stage is to write. You need to write down. So even if you don't have time to really dig into why, or really, because we'll get into that in a little bit, but you mainly just need to make some kind of a note, even if it's just a word or a phrase or something that will remind you of how that conversation or how that situation went. Because when you're in a conversation with a narcissist, they're going to spin you in so many directions. It's going to be really difficult to keep track of how they even got to you. So, it's almost like you're on a Ferris wheel and you don't even know where it started anymore because you can't tell which way is up. And they're very good at running circles around you. So it's really hard to say, wow, how did they get to me? So it's really important, try to really pin down the first minute, the moment that they get you into emotional state, because they're pulling you out of that observant state, and they're getting you into an emotional state. And if you can identify right away and make a mental note or write it down of what exactly it was that got you to react. Okay, if you can, even at the end of an argument or a situation where they got to you at an emotional level, if you can write down anything and everything they were able to say that got you to react, that's even better. So you're going to want to write all those things down, and because we're going to come back to those. So next step of the I know me, the next component is going to be that we're going to modify. Okay, so what we're going to do now, and this is the part that matters largely, is now that we have a list, thank you to our narcissist, of the things that they were successfully able to trigger us on, and we came at the situation initially in a neutral state, so it becomes a lot more easily noticeable when we start in that position and they trigger us and we write it down. Now what we have is, think of it like a shopping list for spiritual growth. So we're able to slowly start whittling away at what it is that triggered us. And this is where we're going to do the subconscious block clearings for identifying what it is that we have, what programs are they able to tap into, almost like hack into in our subconscious mind, that causes us to react. Because keep in mind that fight or flight, if we are pre-programmed, if you will, to react when somebody says something to us that was said when we were very little, like gosh, it could be anything, you're worthless, or you need to do what I say, or and it could be any of these things, and maybe it's something we grew up with and we've heard it before, and it just makes us angry, and the minute we hear that phrase, we trigger. So it's really has nothing to do with the narcissist. They're only able to manipulate you because somewhere you're running a program where this was already built in. They're not installing anything new. They're only using what's already there. So you're going to need to start asking yourself some hard questions of, what is it that they triggered in me? Where have I run into this before? Where did I experience this? How far back did I experience it? And there's ways to question, and there's ways to muscle test that are going to help you to whittle that down. You can even muscle test for age brackets so that you can get yourself into the right time frame, and then start just doing a little thinking. Well, where was I when I was 14, and what happened that year, or what happened in that window of time, and you can literally just test your way through until you can kind of narrow it down. And then if that doesn't work, there's ways to kind of do free visualizations where you can allow yourself to explore terrain and see what comes up. If you have an idea of what you're looking for, there's ways to go through that, and that's more of a walk-through process. We'll walk you through a whole process there of visualization so that you can get some more insight into what it is. And it's really mind-blowing, those visualizations, as you go through them. So that is one way to identify. There's many ways to identify what it is, but really it's a process where you're gonna figure out what it is. As soon as you know what it is, then that's where we're gonna use the T8, and we're gonna use the T8 method to clear. And so that is the opportunity that we have to modify our existing programming and our beliefs. Okay, so now imagine, if you will, that you've just closed one window on a giant building that is basically all the holes that you have. So it's just one window. We got lots of floors to go, and lots of different sides, and lots of different wings to this building. But as you go through and you close all these, there's less areas for them to come through. So that's modify. And the last step, because every time you do that, you have strengthened yourself, but you are expanding. And you're expanding your awareness, and you're expanding your strength, and you're expanding your self-love, and you're just expanding right alongside the universe in a sense, and you're expanding yourself in your consciousness. So what will happen is, as you clear each one of these things, what it's doing is it's greasing the wheels. It's gonna make the whole process so much simpler for you to make progress. If you want to do goal setting, if you want to do manifestation work to set new goals or find a new job, or if you're holding, if you're trying, if part of your change that you're trying to do and moving away from the narcissist, let's say they're the only ones that have been, maybe they hold money over you, and you weren't able to hold a job, and maybe they've manipulated you into giving up your job, and now you're living at home, and they have you under their thumb. So of course, to move out of this situation, you would need to be able to get a job. And maybe your whole life you've been told that you're not worthy, and then the narcissist has been there riding off on that wave, saying that you could never get a job because who would want you, or you don't have any, you aren't worthy, you don't have any skills to bring to the table, like who would want you? So this is kind of the networked way it works. So they're using what's already there. They're running an old program. You might have been 5 or 6. You're running an old program, but now they're using it to their benefit, and they have you broken. So you're going to have the program that they used in the first place when you were 5, and they've been running that program for you on top of it. So now you have all the trauma now from that's affiliated. So what's got to happen is we would go in and we would change that belief and clear that subconscious block, so that now when you go try and get a job, you're not sabotaging yourself, or you don't have all these blocks to being successful, so that when you get there, because what will happen a lot of the time is when you have a block, there's a lot to this, because this can get a little complicated, but in a sense, it's like there's walls up of a variety. There's a variety of walls up. There's a variety on the morphic field side where you're putting out messages that other people may or may not be receiving, and you may be, or some people may see it as, I'm manifesting what I want, and what I want is, to be worthless and not get a job. So that's one way of looking at it. Also, we subconsciously sabotage ourselves. So maybe you're late to the appointment that you go to get the new job, and so there's things that there's a variety, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of outcomes that can come from a subconscious block. I don't even think I could probably grasp them all to share, but I think the important thing is to understand that when those are present, there's a variety of ways that those will manifest in our life. And so bottom line is, you need those out of the way. You don't want those things running. You don't want those programs running and causing you problems while you're trying to get on your feet and you're trying to change your life and you're trying to make things better for yourself and you're trying to learn self-love and grow. So that's what we do, is we modify. And then we expand. With each time that we clear, every time that we successfully solve for one of these things that's blocking our path, any time that they have reflected back to us something about ourselves that needs to be given our attention, then it's one more window to shut. It's one more hole we can patch within ourselves. It's one more one more stroke of the pen. It's literally perfecting us if we use that. So that's what we're doing, is we're removing ourselves from the emotional carnage by taking a step back and allowing this to become something where we're observing it and we've neutralized it by what we've learned and know. And now we're writing down, using these things as a tool to make a list, and then we're modifying that belief and modifying that behavior and clearing out that subconscious block that's preventing us from being able to make any change, and then we're expanding. And part of that expansion process, you expand just by clearing, because you've just thrown the doors wide open, but you also need to now set new goals, set new heights, set new intentions. So part of the expanding is also to kind of turn the steering wheel in a new direction and set your sights on something new, and then set a new intention, because everything that you set intentionally is what you're going to bring towards you. But what the problem with a lot of the, I don't know how many people have followed the law of attraction stuff, intentionally manifesting the things that you want in your life. Part of the reason why that doesn't seem to be very successful is because people, the computing power of what really powers that to work is this subconscious programming that we're running, and we don't know what's locked in there. And so that's why the more you clear that out, that's where you're going to see most of the changes really start. Things will start to really shift as you start to remove those. So the progress that you're trying to make, it gets so much easier and it becomes so much smoother. And so when you're sitting there doing affirmation work, and you're saying, I love myself, and in the back of your mind you're saying, I hate myself, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve love, there could be 1,000 programs running in your subconscious mind, which is housing the vast majority of your computing power for manifesting your life. And there's this little 10% on its little hamster wheel putting away, trying to affect change while you're wide awake, and you're saying, I love myself, and it just does not compute. So we clear it, and we help to transform that and create a healthier situation where the affirmation work that you're doing then of I love myself, I'm worthy, hey, then you have a clean slate, because we've wiped that old program, and now you have a nice clean computer to work from, so to speak, your brain. And you can set all your new intentions, and that's how you expand. So that's the I know me, and the concept of that, again, it's to use the narcissist to help you to be your eyes, because we're blind, and in a sense they're not, because their survival depends on being able to read us, and their ability to get energy and attention from us very much depends on being able to know how to push our buttons to get what they need from us. And so they're able to access things and see things in us that we basically are very blind to. So we get to use them in a sense to benefit, which is really an interesting twist on a narcissistic relationship, because it is when you're deep in it and you have that addiction going and you feel like you're less than, and you're susceptible to that abuse, it's quite the painful experience. So, but as you start to slowly work through each one of these things, the usual techniques that they use, they won't work. They won't work. They'll just start to. I liken it to. I love to use this visual for me. I used to see those balls that people would get in on water, and they would get in the ball and they would walk around on top of the water in this thing, and they would just kind of like a hamster ball, but they would be on water. And I always imagine the narcissist just on the outside trying to grab onto me and slipping off. And so that's kind of how I, strangely, but that's what came to mind when I think about it. Whenever they're trying to use their usual techniques on me, the stuff that should be working, and they just can't get a grip. They just slip off, and they just can't. They can't. I'm impervious, and they can't get in my way. They're just grabbing, and it is a little sad in some ways, because they're really kind of a flip side of us. They're very much, I guess, they're in the trauma experience, the codependent versus the narcissist, they're in a way mirror opposites in a sense. But what got both of them, the codependent and the narcissist, what causes that in them is that they reacted differently to the situation, or they had a different level of trauma that they went through. As I understand it, this is just from the stuff that I've listened to. I'm not a psychologist, but my takeaway was, that the codependent person, they'd got some kind of affection, but they had to sacrifice themselves to be a pleaser, to be able to get, or they had to do things in a certain way to be able to get some kind of attention, where the narcissist type of person couldn't get anything and went into save myself mode, and it all became about them and how to manipulate to get some kind of attention. So really they're they're on the opposite end of it in a sense, but the creation of it comes from the same fundamental starting point of basically that trauma, any child trauma, it seems to be, from everything I've heard and read. So anyway, that's it's, I don't like to see people suffer. It's not fun, even though it's easy to be angry with them because of how they treat you. But the key thing here is it is easy to fall back into feeling sorry for them, but it's really important that you keep in mind that the only way through is to keep your focus for now on yourself. It's not selfish. It's going to make you healthier, and by you being healthier, you're gonna be able to manage, because you're not gonna be able to fix the narcissist. So you just need to manage what you can manage, which is you. And so keep your focus on that, even if you are feeling, it's easy to fall into the I feel sorry for them role. But that's not, we need to stay on track and really keep our focus on working on ourselves and sticking to this program, and understand that, obviously we're not going at this with the intention to change them, and we're not going at this with the intention to get back at them. None of the above. This is only about you. It's the whole concept is I know me. And what we're doing is basically teaching ourselves about ourselves and making ourselves heal and healthier and more whole and more balanced people. And we're learning self-love. And that's basically the whole process of the I know me. That's what I wanted to share. So.